I'm Jeremy McCollum. I'm the manager of observability engineering at Pearson. I lead a team of site reliability engineers who have primary delivery focus for observability products at Pearson. Let's dive in. A little bit about our observability engineering team. We are what we consider a foundational SRE team, so site reliability engineers that have full stack ownership for our observability suite. We have a large challenge in front of us as a global company. We are in charge of delivering observability solutions for our greater Pearson technology organization. Pearson has, if you look at our cloud or engineering organization, we have what we consider delivery site reliability engineering teams and then foundational teams. Delivery teams would be those kind of core SRE groups that you would think of that walk in lockstep with our development and delivery teams to deliver infrastructure and have that operational support responsibility for those products. Foundational teams like mine would be teams that deliver services that are consumed by these standard site reliability engineering teams. We have similar needs across our team as far as skill sets and responsibilities for our products. However, our products are internally facing and our customers are internal rather than our external learner customers. If we were to look at Pearson's operational models in the past, we've had a couple of different lines of operational models out there, kind of our legacy ops teams, which are very siloed in their approach. We've got large groups of operating systems or database or applications engineers. And then we've also got some teams that have been migrating to site reliability engineering models for the last several years, I'd say over the last 5+ years. And those folks have full stack ownership for their products. They like to measure all those key service level indicators across their products so that they can identify the metrics that matter and then get those alerts out to the right teams so that they can support those. In our future state, everybody will have that full stack ownership and be in site reliability engineering models. As you can see on this slide, PagerDuty is a key component in this model. We see our site reliability engineering teams consuming our monitoring tools, as you can see those on the left side of the slide, and then taking ownership of self-service administration inside of those, identifying the metrics that matter, building the thresholds in those, and then having those alerting out to PagerDuty services for their specific teams. And when they get those alerts, they have that operational responsibility to then go fix those, engage incident management when they need to, and follow our standard ITIL and service management properties inside of our company. We've got several challenges, though, as we look at this future state model that we'd like to get to. We have these multiple operational models, which I talked about. Certain lines of business had been a little bit more mature in their response models than other products had. And because of that, we just had this fractured model. Some teams were still going to centralize the ops teams, whereas certain lines of business were definitely already in that site reliability engineering model. Working with PagerDuty early on, they helped us identify kind of where we were at on the time space continuum, if you will, from an operations maturity level model. Some teams being very reactive, and some of them being into the response and proactive model, even being somewhat preventative, but still needing to improve upon that. The ultimate goal was that we would take what we had found. We had 2 large PagerDuty accounts across Pearson, one of those being in that reactive model and the other being in that proactive, preventative journey. And the ultimate goal was to get them all working in similar models and to reduce our mean time to acknowledgement and recovery for any of the products using the PagerDuty platform. Ultimately, hoping to achieve operational excellence for our products. by reducing that MTTA, moving to this SRE model across the operationally responsible teams, identifying SLIs. We found that many of our teams were doing very catch-all models as far as their alerting, sending everything to maybe a bucket, just an operating systems or a database type of catch-all alert platform, as opposed to getting very team specific and aligning those alerts with the products. We also want to align our operational costs back to each product. We found that many of our teams and across certain lines of business weren't even aware of what the cost of doing business was for them. What was the total cost of ownership for their product? They weren't factoring in a lot of the operational costs or the day-to-day licensing costs. So we wanted to use PagerDuty and the digital operations platform to continue to enhance that visibility so that we could then show back to the lines of business and if and when it made sense, charge back to these lines of business rather than having a central funding model. We want the P&L sheet for any of these products to actually show what it costs to run this product, so we can focus development on better products and stop creating multiple products that do the same thing. Let's align our development resources to improve the outcomes of our goals. As mentioned before, we had these two accounts, and you can see that we had a very reactive model, and then we also had one that was pretty far along in its journey and being more proactive and preventative. And that was what we ended up wanting to have across all of our accounts. So we're consolidating these into one platform as opposed to having two out there. And we actually chose the bottom, the more responsive and proactive one that we already had in place. And our goal is to bring over all of our users from that old legacy model into the new account structure. Along the way, bringing the good practices that we already have in place in the responsive and proactive account and implementing improvements along the way to make sure that both sides of that equation are working using all the great features of the digital operations platform. Working with PagerDuty, we really identified all of the things that we would hope to get out of this transition. We want to improve visibility, get analytics data. We can't make improvements without a solid data platform to go off of. Increase the event intelligence. Let's have our events drive outcomes. If we can identify events that we always restart a service on, let's have that be automated. So we can build that into that digital operations platform, as opposed to having an engineer SSH into a box and then restart that service. And then also incorporate that with modern incident response systems. The direct integration with incident response solutions such as ServiceNow will allow us to improve our service management team's processes as well and get consistency across Pearson. Again, working with PagerDuty, they helped us identify some ways that we could do this, coming up with alert services by products and building out team models in there so that we had solid escalation policies that went into on-call rotations, as opposed to what we were finding across the reactive environment, which was they would send everything into a bucket, as mentioned before, and then also send that alert out to any number of engineers in an on-call rotation, as opposed to having a solid rotation. They impacted everybody's personal time. They would send an alert out to maybe 5 engineers to begin with, and if those 5 engineers didn't respond in the first 10 minutes, then they would escalate it to another 5 and then bring in management. So we found that it was a very, very noisy platform, and over time, folks either silenced alerts too soon, ignored them altogether, and had identified what really mattered in there, by either not responding to alerts or just finding the services that needed to be restarted at those when they did get the alerts. So ultimately, working with PagerDuty, we found some better models that we could put in place, and then we would also turn that into a business service model so that we could show that out to our stakeholders and identify where the pain points were in our applications. This has truly been a partnership. We've been working with the PagerDuty team for quite some time now. Early on, they found quite a few areas for us to improve. One of our primary alerting tools was actually an email alerting tool as opposed to API based. So since it was internally developed, they spent some development time with us so that we could review that and identify how we could send those alerts out via API calls as opposed to email. It was a very nice partnership there. It definitely increased our development time to delivery on that. They also identified prospective apps in that reactive account and groups within there so that we could come up with a transition plan to move those over, and also offered up professional services, which we are engaging as we speak right now to help transition that account over to the new digital operations platform. One of the things that we found, though, that we would really like to do was tag incoming alerts with our internal product service ID so that we could correlate those costs and operational toil back to a product over time. And that was one area that PagerDuty did not allow, was the tagging of incoming services, alerting services. So what we had to do is just change our naming convention so that when we ran reports out of there, we could parse by the service ID within those alerting services. PagerDuty, though, took our feedback on that, and we know that it's on their development roadmap to add that feature into future releases of the digital operations platform. They also offered up great training. So we're going to be leveraging PagerDuty University and also some instructor-led training along the way to make sure that we have hands-on and always up-to-date opportunities for our engineers and support staff to improve their capabilities inside the platform, as well as improve their overall alert response and incident management protocols. And we're really looking forward to that. And ultimately, our long-term goal was to shut down our legacy accounts so that we were only running one account. Based on all those goals, I'll share where we're at right now. The internal development of the API, that's done. That was great. We were able to knock that out in no time at all. Identifying those prospective apps and respective groups, we're also done with that. But if we looked at where we are in the progress of the project to migrate, it's in progress. We identified that we just didn't have the internal resources to actually knock that project out in a timely fashion, and we did have a timeline. We have our upcoming renewal of that reactive account in October of 2021. We don't want to renew it. So what we did is we engaged professional services from PagerDuty, and they're actively working with us to move those teams over on a team-by-team basis. The tagging of incoming alerts with product service ID, as I mentioned, we found a way around that. We just did it by naming the service, the alerting service, as opposed to the tagging, since it wasn't a possibility to tag those services as they came in. However, they're not all done just yet. We've found that as we're adding teams in there, some of them don't follow the process to begin with, even though we've asked them to. So we're also using the API to report out of PagerDuty and share the status of their the naming conventions with those folks. Building business services, that's much like the incoming tagging or the naming of those alert services. It's in progress, but we would like to have that done by the end of the year. And we assume that once we get through the actual shutdown of the legacy account, then we'll be able to put a little bit more focused attention on that. And any of the teams that come over during the professional services engagement, they'll also be held accountable to bringing those business services in and those alerting services in, using what we feel like is the best practices. In internal training, now that we have access to the PagerDuty University, that's in progress. We've also worked with our internal learning and development group to set up some ongoing training, and PagerDuty is partnering with us to ensure that we have access to that for all of the folks internal. So all in all, we're making great strides from where we came from. It's a slow progress, and I'll speak definitively that the weak link in that equation has been us and not PagerDuty. They've been a great partner and always willing to move as fast as we were willing to move on this. But with a company as large as we are, we've found that we cannot always move as fast as we'd like to. There are internal challenges that we always have to overcome, but PagerDuty has been right along there along with us the entire time. A great partner in this entire project. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you listening to our journey and our overview of the challenges we faced and how PagerDuty has been there to help us throughout this. Thanks again. Bye.